This is the starter base that I built in my first hardcore episode, which was earlier this year. And as much as I think this looks really cool, I want to move out. Honestly, this was always meant to be a starter base, as much as that phrase is kind of a meme now. But my biggest problem with it is the view. This side, this side, this side, and especially this side. As much as I am happy to have built 100 farms in the last video, I don't exactly want to look at them all the time. I have always wanted to build a custom mountain and build my base onto and into the mountain. A couple years ago in a survival world, I attempted this, but I didn't get very far. So I am beginning my dream base project today. Let's grab some stone, head out to the mountain biome, and build a custom mountain range. Okay, let's hit the brakes here. This is not gonna work. Well, it could work, but it would probably take a couple of years. So let's head into a creative testing world to get everything sorted out. Okay, back in the day, I used to use worldedit to make mountains. I would just take any item and turn it into a sand brush, and then just imagine that this is a big mountain. And then I would paint that sand some other block like stone, and that's pretty much it. This is what it would look like on a bigger scale. No one really does that anymore because there is a mod called Axiom, which is relatively new. And there's a bunch of ways that you can make mountains with this. One of them is the elevation tool. You can select a custom brush, and then you can pretty much just draw mountains. You can also just place them with one click, and you get a pretty good looking mountain with this. I would use Axiom, but there's a certain feature that I want to have on my mountain that this can't really do, and that is snow texturing. On real life mountains, there's snow on the tops and in the crevices of mountains, while the steeper stone walls are usually exposed stone. As far as I know, the best I can do on Axiom is just hand painting that, which I don't want to do. So let's go over to the tool that I'm planning on using. This is a program called World Painter. It's mainly used for large-scale terraforming, and anything you draw in here is gonna show up in the world. I'm gonna create a new world. 2000 by 2000 blocks should be enough. Make it flat, no beaches, and land seed. Alright, here we got basically just a flat world, and now we can sculpt it to how we like. Just like Axiom, there's an elevate tool, and it will bring up the land to whatever shape that the brush is. So I've downloaded a couple custom brushes from FoundInMN, which are in the shape of mountains already. So if I just hold this down, we got a mountain just like that. For now, I'm gonna make a mountain like this. I'm gonna paint it with stone because that's what most of the mountain is gonna be made out of. And this isn't gonna be my final product, but just to show you, let's export this as a Minecraft map and see what it looks like. Alright, this is what it looks like. It's pretty cool, but there is some issues. We're gonna ignore like the texturing and color for now. As far as the shape goes, there's a lot of random blocks and it's just not smooth. Like what is this block for? Why is that there? So to solve this, I'm gonna use the smooth tool and just smooth the entire thing. Alright, it's not perfect, but I think it does look better. I can always just use Axiom to smooth things out more because it also has a smooth feature. Now, the way to add snow to this is going to be using a global operation to paint all of the blocks that are under a certain degree. So let's pick deep snow, that's just snow blocks. We'll do below 60 degrees, and okay, it worked, but I think that's a bit too much. Let's do 40 degrees this time, and there we go, I think that looks a lot better. Let's export this and take a look. There we go, that looks pretty cool. Now the flatter areas have snow and the steeper areas are stone. That is exactly what I wanted. I'm gonna play around with World Painter for a bit and see if I can get something that's even better. Okay, I spent a while working on this. This is what it looks like in 3D. Now it's time to give this some texture and some color other than just stone. Now, this is the second time I've ever used World Painter, so I'm not an expert. But after a bunch of testing, I think I found a good way to texture this. Similar to the snow, I'm going to color the mountain based on what degree that the blocks are at using a long list of global operations. If you wanted to do this yourself, just follow along, so let's go. Alright, obviously first we're going to start off with a base of all stone. First global operation, we're going to fill the terrain with polished basalt, and we're going to do that below 73 degrees. Next one, we're going to do normal basalt, and that's going to be below 65 degrees. Next up is gray concrete, that's going to be below 57 degrees. We're going to do basalt again. This one is going to be below 46 degrees. And then polished basalt, which is below 44 degrees. And then stone, which is below 42 degrees. That is all of the stone. Now let's do the snow. Fill the terrain with snow below 41 degrees. That is most of the snow, but I want some more on the very tops of the mountains. So we're going to do snow at or above Y level 160 and below 45 degrees. Snow at or above 200, below 50 degrees. And finally, snow at or above 250, below 55 degrees. There we go, that is all of the texturing, and now we gotta smooth it. For reasons I will explain to you later, I have to paint some of the snow pink. I'm going to apply a smooth to all of the snow blocks, but I don't want all of the snow blocks to be smooth. So all of the spots that are painted pink, that's snow that I don't want smooth, and I'll show you why in a sec. Alright, let's do a big smooth brush that is only applied to the snow. There we go. And then we can go ahead and turn all of this pink back into snow. Alright, let's take a look in game. Oh man, look at this. I'm acting like I haven't been working on this for a week. So you can really see how all of those different blocks really makes a difference. The stone is like a highlight, and then the gray concrete is like a shadow. And I didn't even have to hand paint any of the stone. It was all just pretty much commands. Now let's talk about the snow. At first, the snow looked like this, and that was fine because I was going to smooth it anyways. Smoothing the entire thing made it look like this, and I just don't like the stone as much when it's all smooth. So I smoothed only the snow, and it looked pretty good at the bottom, but at the top, there was a clear difference between the snow and the stone, and it just didn't feel right. So that is why I did the whole pink painting thing, so I could get unsmooth snow at the top, and then smooth snow everywhere else. Now let's actually do some stuff in the hardcore world. Okay, where do I even start? It's good and all that I already have a design down, but I should probably address that what I'm going to be building is huge. This will definitely be the biggest thing that I have ever made in survival. 1 year ago, I made a video where I built the world map, and that whole thing was about 1 million blocks. This project we are doing in this video is 4 times that. 3.4 million snow blocks, 300,000 gray concrete, 300,000 basalt, 200,000 polished basalt, and 50,000 stone. It may be only 5 different types of blocks, but this is the most I've ever had to gather for any project ever. Usually I collect items from the most to the least, but to get snow I want to use an item that's coming out in the next update, which currently is not out. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to collect all of these stone blocks, starting with gray concrete. I have this super efficient concrete duper right here. Now, how long do you think it would take to get 300,000 gray concrete? It would take 25 hours. I built this farm with each type of concrete, which is all 16 colors, because in 99% of situations, this will be enough to get whatever type of concrete I need. And unfortunately, we are in that 1% of time where I need a whole lot of one color. So I'm gonna kind of disassemble this and replace all of the other colors with gray concrete just for this one-time use. When I'm done, I'll switch it back, and then hopefully I will never ever have to disassemble this again. Maybe. Probably not. Anyways, let's turn this on, turn the farm to concrete mode, and now we just have to wait 1.5 hours, which is still a long time, but a lot better than 25 hours. Alright, in these chests we have all 300,000 gray concrete plus a little extra. Next material on the list is basalt. I need 300,000 normal basalt and 200,000 smooth basalt or polished, whatever it is. And you can pretty easily just convert basic basalt to polished basalt by crafting. So what I'm looking for is about 500,000 basalt. Even though this farm looks pretty small and simple, it's just efficient enough where I can just use this. Of course it's gonna take me a couple hours of AFK, but that's fine. Before we do that though, I need to change out these normal chests for shulker box loaders. I'm going to need to get some materials, but it should not be too hard. Alright, it's all set up. Now I'm just going to turn this on, and I will see you in a couple hours. Alright, we have 500,000 basalt in here. Now I have to craft 200,000 of this into polished basalt. And there, now we're good on basalt. The last of the gray blocks that I need is stone. Once again, I am glad that I made this in the last episode. As far as I know, this is pretty much the fastest stone farm you can get. I expanded the storage a little bit, so now I just gotta AFK here for maybe an hour. I know this is a lot of stone, but compared to everything else, it's really not that much. Alright, that is all of the stone blocks, and now we have to do the snow. This is my current snow farm, and I can't even begin to imagine how long it would take to get 3 million snow blocks like this. So we're gonna need a bigger farm. This is a snow farm by Illyrio that produces over 1 million snowballs per hour. You got snow golems that are producing snow that gets blown up by TNT. It drops down here, and all of the snowballs get packed into shulker boxes, which all end up here. That's cool and all, but in the recent update, there is an item called the Crafter that can automate the crafting of snowballs into snow blocks. So I made this. It's basically identical on the top half, but on the bottom, each shulker box loader has been replaced with this line that creates snow blocks, and then those get put in a shulker box loader. This is an automatic crafter setup that I made. There's 3 hoppers that are running into the crafter that take the snowballs and convert them to snow blocks. You need a signal in order to drop it, so we have this redstone clock that is only activated once there are 4 snowballs. I'm not a redstone genius, and this block just came out, but I think I'm satisfied with the way that this turned out. On each of the 4 modules, we have 13 of those crafters set up, which I think is enough to keep up. If we turn this on, obviously it's going to be a bit laggy, but you can see the snowballs being produced, and they are going through this line and getting turned into snow blocks, which all end up right here and then get packed into shulker boxes. I've already got all the materials waiting for the update to come out, and now I need to pick where I'm gonna build this. I was thinking right here next to the iron farm, but I'm a bit worried that the iron golems might spawn on the snow farm. I don't think that would happen, but just to be safe, I'm gonna build it over here instead. If you happen to miss the last video, I built 100 farms, and this place happens to be the most concentrated area of farms, so that's why it all looks like this. To help with building this in survival, I'm using a mod called Lightmatica. If you've watched a couple of my other videos before, you'll not be surprised by that, and we'll talk more about that later. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have any trouble with building this farm. In order to collect the snowballs as fast as possible, there are hopper minecarts inside of the blue ice, so I had to put over 100 minecarts inside of blocks, and that was really tricky to figure out. Eventually I figured out a method to get it working, so I got them all finished. If you ever happen to be making this in your own world, just remember, use sticky pistons to get the rails out and the ice in, and the rest you can probably figure out. The final and funniest step is making all the snow golems and tying them to fences. I'm trying to find a good spot to start building, and I think this patch of cold biomes to the east of my other stuff is a pretty good spot. Not too far away is the end portal from the first video. I will probably be incorporating this into my base in some way. Now, the majority of the mountain is going to be well above all the other terrain, but there's some stuff like these ice spikes and some hills and mountains and stuff. These are actually going to be in the way of the mountain, so I'm gonna have to tear these down by hand. To take down this mountain, I started doing it by hand, and then I realized that I could just use a TNT bombing machine, and I think that worked pretty well. Okay, I am in an awkward spot right now. The reason I never turned on the snow farm is because I'm still in version 1.20.1, and 1.21 has been out for a couple weeks, but I'm still waiting for the replay mod to get updated. That's how I get shots like this. I really want to have replay mod footage for when I'm building the mountain, so I just can't update the version yet. The snow farm isn't going to break or anything if I run it now, but it just won't produce any snow blocks. So what I'm going to do is turn myself into a crafter and just craft the snow blocks myself. This will give me a good amount to get started until 1.21 for the replay mod releases. Alright, I've got 18 shulker boxes here full of snow. Now I've got to move these and the other materials to the area where I'm going to be building, which I've been calling the snowy area so far. Right now this is the only portal I have to get there, which is to the goat horn farm I built in the last video. I think where I'm at right now is going to be in the middle of the mountain. Obviously this will be below the top of it. So I'll just set up the storage here for now. It just started snowing, which reminds me of something. As you know, in Minecraft, when it snows, snow layers build up on full blocks like grass. But as you can see, that's not happening with my world, and that is because I have disabled snow layers from accumulating. If they did, then the mountain would end up looking like this, unless I built it in a desert or somewhere that rains. This is the command to make that happen, if you were wondering. Now, I have to explain to you how I'm going to go about building this. First, building this by hand the old-fashioned way, or truly vanilla way, that's just not gonna happen. I guess it technically would be possible because we're not doing any vanilla breaking things, but that would take years to do. So some of you may have already guessed we're going to be using Lightmatica, which is an amazing mod that myself and a ton of other YouTubers use to build giant projects. We can load in a blueprint of something that's already made to tell us how to build it in survival. There's also an easy place function that turns this into this. Well, we're almost at day 900 of this hardcore world, and I'm curious to see what day I'll be at when this is all done. It'll definitely be past 1000, but for now, 20 minutes into this video, I think it's time we finally start building this mountain range in hardcore, so let's go. I've got a good chunk done, but I'm still not even close to being done with the whole thing. So far, it's been 80 days, but I've actually played for about 40 days straight. None of this custom mountain is spawn-proofed, so just to be safe, I'm sleeping through every single night. To avoid having to do this, I am going to make a mob switch. A mob switch will prevent all hostile mobs from spawning, and people say it's like having the game in peaceful mode. This mob switch is based on one from Logical Geek Boy, and basically I have a bunch of villagers here which I trade and then turn into zombie villagers that are all stored in one block. Zombie villagers that were traded with are special because they're one of only a few mobs that will count towards the mob cap when they're in a loaded chunk. Since there's a maximum of 70 mobs before mobs stop spawning, I had to get 70 zombie villagers inside of this one area, and man, setting this up was a headache. Quick tip for everyone out there, zombie villagers that are holding items somehow don't count towards the mob cap, so yeah, that took me way too long to figure out. And on top of that, I'm still on the verge of switching from 1.20.1 to version 1.21, which changes the size of spawn chunks. So what I'm hoping is that when I upgrade to version 1.21, these zombie villagers will be on the verge of the chunk border, so I can move them with a lever to turn the mob switch on or off. There's this thing called lazy chunks, which might actually screw me up and I'll have to do this whole thing over again, but for now I just want to go back to building. While I was waiting for the villagers to spawn for the mob switch, I recorded myself building this chunk of the mountain, but my game crashed while I was doing it and I lost all the footage, so that's fun. So far, I've only been building up to level 100, which is why everything stops at a certain point. From now on, instead of spraying blocks wherever like I was before, I'm gonna do one layer at a time. I know that probably doesn't make a huge difference to you watching at home, but for me, this was a lot easier. It was also a little bit more boring, but I think going one layer at a time is overall faster. Plus, when it comes to the peaks of mountains, I can get some pretty cool replays like this. Okay, I have some bad news and some good news. The bad news is, even after building all of this over the span of a little over a week, I am only 1/4 of the way done. You see, this whole part, this is one corner of the entire thing. That means finishing up this whole thing should take around 3 weeks. The good news is that replay mod has finally been updated to 1.21, so now I'm gonna update my world. Okay, now we're in 1.21 and there's the trials, the other stuff. The only thing I care about right now is the auto crafter. You can see here I kind of modified the snow farm because I had to craft everything by hand, and by the way I used a mod called Item Scroller to help with doing that. I took down all the temporary stuff and I put all of the crafters in place, so now we have a fully automatic snow block farm. I don't know if it was that or my method just got better, but building the second quarter felt like it went by a lot faster than the first quarter. And with that, we have half of the entire mountain range all done. To put into perspective just how long this takes to make, imagine a 100 days hardcore video. That's how long it takes to build one corner. The hard part about it is that there's not much content to be made out of it. I'm pretty much just doing this. The only thing I can do right now is just keep on going despite how long and boring it is. There we go, 3/4 done with the entire thing. I wasn't kidding with that 100 days comparison. This has taken around 300 days so far. I started building the mountain on July 2nd and it is currently July 21st, so almost 3 weeks. I'm taking a little break because my hands are starting to get tired from doing the same exact thing over and over and over again, and I'm also feeling that fatigue you get when you work on something for so long. So before I finish up, let's go over a few things. The first thing I should probably address is why am I building this in corners? Why not do the whole thing at once? Well, if I tried loading the entire mountain as a schematic, my game would either be unplayable or just crash. When I load a schematic that's only one corner of the original mountain, it's not super smooth, but it's definitely way better. The next thing I want to talk about is the color palette that I'm using. Obviously, I'm using snow for the snow, but for the rocky areas or stone parts of the build, we have gray concrete, basalt, polished basalt, and stone. I knew I wanted the stone of the mountain to be gray, and besides brown, gray might be the most abundant block color in the game, but that didn't mean I could just pick out any gray block I wanted to use. Besides the 4 that I eventually chose to use, every other block was either too expensive, flammable, affected by gravity, too similar in color to easier blocks to get, too light, or too dark. The next thing I want to address is something I realized that I never mentioned in this whole video, and that is my lack of a totem. Despite what I thought was obvious sarcasm in the last video, I know how totems work, I know what they do, but I have decided to not use totems in my world ever, just to keep it a little more interesting. The last thing I want to address is that there are some parts of the mountain that look pretty bad. This, especially this. What is even going on here? I think slowly over time, as I turn this place into my base and I start building stuff here, I'll slowly fix it, but I just don't have the time to do that in this video. I took some time off to design something for the next video, and then I went back to finishing the last 1/4 of the mountain. This final corner took me a bit longer than everything else. I thought I was just tired, but it turns out this is actually the biggest schematic file size. But after around 10 days, I was able to finish the entire mountain. From the first block I placed to the last, it took 450 Minecraft days to complete the entire mountain. That's not including any of the prep time, and I also didn't sleep except for a few times before I made the mob switch. As I said before, this mountain is only the first step in creating my mega base. I would still like to add trees, buildings, paths, bridges, all sorts of stuff to the mountain, but I don't have time to get through all that stuff in this video. To celebrate 1000 days of hardcore, I am making this world free to download for everyone. That includes the mountains, my base, all the farms I've made, everything. Special thanks to all the channel members. I have something special planned, so keep an eye out for member-only community posts. If you want more information about the process of making this mountain, I have a video on my second channel where I go more in depth. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment if you have any ideas for what I could put on or inside of this mountain. Like I said, I do have a ton of plans and ideas, but it wouldn't hurt to hear some more from you guys. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.